Iowa can win this football game Saturday against Indiana. We'll tell you what it's going to take for the Hawkeyes to pull off the big upset and change the perception of Iowa football.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. While you're there, hit that subscribe button, or on the podcast side, 5-star reviews. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for over 20 years on the radio. Man, it's been a long time here in the state of Iowa. Seen some highs, seen some lows with the Hawkeyes. You can hear me currently on the Iowa Sports Radio Network each weekday from noon to 2 with stations all across the state. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda, Move and Be Moved. Today, we will take a look at the matchup against Indiana. What's it going to take for Iowa to pull off what would be, in many people's minds, an absolute shocker? We'll also hear from Tom Kakert from HawkeyeReport.com, his report of what he sees and what he expects to see in the matchup against Indiana, plus some basketball talk as Iowa basketball practice is underway on the men's side, and some big recruiting news potentially happening on the side of women's basketball. Plus, we will make our picks of the day presented by FanDuel. But let's start today with the DNA of an upset. What's it going to take Saturday for Iowa to get this win against Indiana? And you know, it's been crazy. After yesterday's episode, we did a crossover edition with Jacob Goins, and reading the comments, reading the bravado from Indiana fans, which you can understand. You can understand after a performance like they had a week ago, why they have a sense that they're unbeatable. But they're not unbeatable. There is a reason that they're unbeatable. This would be a whole lot more than a 7.5 point spread in this game. We're still talking about a team going on the road for the first time. We're still talking about a team that hasn't proven very much against stiff competition. Look, coming into the year, I was not a believer in Illinois. And if you were an everydayer and you listened throughout the summer months, and when we talked about the Big Ten, you understood my concerns for that team that won so many close games a year ago, had the ball bounce their way a whole bunch, and didn't look to do a whole lot to augment that roster coming into the season. They blew the doors off them. It was a dominating performance. They're averaging 588 yards a game. Indiana has a lot to be excited about and a lot to anticipate. This is going to be a team right back, maybe in the conversation for the college football playoff. But they're not unbeatable. It's football. It's a touchdown point spread. We've seen upsets like this before, and the DNA for a Hawkeye upset. Now, when we look at some of the past upsets that Iowa's pulled off, you go back to the 14-13 win against Michigan. You go back in some of these performances and the way that they were able to ugly it up. I don't think that you can do and have the same path to victory like you did in some of those past upsets. I also want to put this up here because there's been so much talk. Iowa's long losing streak now against ranked teams. You know how many games of those during this 10-game losing streak have been in Kinnick Stadium? One of those games. And as you go back through this drought, if you will, for Iowa playing ranked teams, you look, haven't played anybody that they're even close to in terms of matchup-wise. Most of these games were blowouts and on paper, and they turn out to be blowouts in real life. But the games that you go back upon and you look at, and close call this year against Iowa State, close call last year in the bowl game against Missouri. Outside of that, though, there haven't been many. The only time that there has been really a close call is the bowl games against Missouri and Kentucky back in 2021 and the home game against Michigan. You could see in that football game that Michigan was a whole lot better than Iowa. And Iowa hung around. And they got it within a couple of scores. There were opportunities also in that game. And I think there are improvements that you have and improvements that Iowa can make in this matchup against Indiana. So I think we need to put that in there because Kinnick is a special place. Kinnick is a place where Iowa can go and has proven many times in the past that they can absolutely win in this spot. If you're somebody that is into situational spreads when it pertains to the point spread, there are a lot of metrics that point Iowa's way. I think this is a betting public game that the betting public is going to be all over Indiana, and yet many professional bettors are going to be on Iowa this week. It is the situational spot that you look for. Indiana after that monstrous win. And when Iowa does this, I go back to the last major upset. When fourth-ranked Penn State came to town back in 2021, Iowa undefeated, Penn State undefeated. It was a top 5 showdown, and Iowa wins at 23-20. Spencer Petras made a big throw, and his throw to Nico Raggiini proved to be the difference in that game. But they had a couple other big plays in that game. Keegan Johnson had a big play in the passing game, a 42-yarder. You're going to need that. Tyler Goodson was able to keep the feet turning, able to keep the momentum going, and get those hard-earned yards throughout the course of the game. When we look back at that game, that's what it was, making enough plays, hanging around. Now, is there any doubt that Sean Clifford's injury also helped out? Absolutely. But injuries happen in football. And at times, you need a little bit of help. This is not to say they should go out and try to injure players. I would never say anything like that. But injuries happen. And if something happens to Indiana, how are they going to go in the face of adversity? Because they haven't dealt with it before. Certainly not this year's team. There's not been any kind of adversity. They gave up an early score against Old Dominion. Okay. They dominated against Illinois. And after it was 7-7, the onslaught was on. There are paths to victory for Iowa. I think it starts, though, up front. Iowa has to control the line of scrimmage. And that top-ranked offensive line for Pro Football Focus, it needs to show up in a big-time way. And regardless of who's back there running the football, Jazion Patterson's going to be out this week. Xavier Williams going to be out this week. We'll see Moulton as he continues his rehab and coming back after we saw him for the first time a week ago against Rutgers. Whoever's back there, maybe it's Nathan McNeil, the freshman. Regardless, those guys have to get yards. And on top of it, there's got to be some chunk plays. You're going to need that, not 80-yard touchdown, but a 30, 40-yarder, probably a couple of those big plays, 20-plus yard runs. Those are the kind of things that Iowa needs. Long, sustained drives. Keep the defense off the field. Be able to maintain, keep Indiana on the sidelines, frustrate them a little bit. And you got to force some turnovers. And we talked about the drought, and it ended with Jackson Rexroth with the INT that he had last week against Rutgers. That needs to continue. You're going to need him to have a big-time performance. This defense needs to force some plays. I would say you're looking at getting to the backfield, 3, 4, 5 sacks. I think at minimum, that's where you start. That's difficult to do because they get the ball out so quickly. Speaking of winning up front, on the other side, that defensive line, again, has to dominate. They have to play at a high level, have to get Mendoza uncomfortable, because when he's comfortable, he's nearly perfect. He makes the right reads. He's got a requisite arm. He can do all the things that you look at. There's a reason people are talking about him as a first-round pick, a potential top 10 pick in the NFL draft. He has the arm talent, no doubt, but in this system, it's about making the right reads. Make him uncomfortable, get out of it. And then finally, another thing that we know year after year after year, what does Iowa have to do? Yeah, they have to dominate special teams. And it goes back to it once again, dominating special teams. That's what Iowa has to do. Look, it's not impossible. Is it probable? That's a different one. We're talking about a touchdown point spread here. Iowa's done it in the past. We'll see if they can get it on Saturday. And we continue Locked On Hawkeyes in your preview for Iowa, Indiana. We welcome in Tom Kakert from HawkeyeReport.com. We'll get Tom's perspective on what he thinks it's going to take for Iowa to pull off the win. Plus, we'll talk some basketball, women's recruiting, and a potential huge weekend in front of them with Addison Bjorn on campus, plus some other news and notes. Plus, we'll talk about the men's basketball team, but a preview of Iowa, Indiana with Tom Kakert from HawkeyeReport.com. That's next as we continue. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment to move the game forward is Jackson Rexroth with that INT. We've been talking about the long drought of interceptions and forced turnovers out of the defense at a time where Iowa needed to make a play defensively. Yes, they did it. They made a play defensively. Jackson Rexroth moved the game forward and definitely helped the Iowa get the road victory. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's move more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved.
Let's get to Tom Kakert. He joins us. It's the Hoosiers. It's the Hawkeyes. It's Peacock. Hello, Tom. Good to talk to you. How are you?
Good to talk to you guys. And, we got prepared for Peacock by Frank Garza. Let the Peacock fly.
I forgot about that. Let's get to the Hawks and the Hoosiers off the bat here. Well, you know what? Let's go back to last week. Tom, just your thoughts on, so what did we see? Turning of a corner, and embarking on the Big Ten, another step forward, obviously, for Gronowski. Some positives to take out of that game. What did you get back on the airplane, Tom, thinking you saw on Friday night?
Thought I saw the Gronowski that I think we all thought we would see from the get-go, and it just took a couple weeks to get there. But I thought he played really well. Defense finally got a turnover, but I'm still not. Yeah. Boy, it's got to be concerning when you see Ethan Kellick-Manis throw for 330, and you got Curt Cignetti in that offense that's averaging 588 yards a game. Again, you should note they did play, Little Sisters of the Poor for their first 3 games, I think. Not exactly a murderer's row of teams, but they just thumped Illinois. I've taken to calling Curt Cignetti Coach Bad Intentions.
That's good.
He will just bury you if he can.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he'll do that to Kirk. He seems to respect Kirk. There's something with him and Bielema, though, that just ain't. he put one on him, and he probably would have put more on him if he could.
Couple of alphas getting together, and you're going to see that from time to time. So let's come up with a path to victory here, Tom. Let's figure out the way that Iowa gets this thing done. Obviously, can't give up 588 yards, can't give up 350 through the air, special environment, all those kind of things. When you're kind of looking at that path, how Iowa pulls off the victory, what are a couple of things that jump to top of mind for you?
Line play is going to be huge in this game, both sides for Iowa, offense and defense. Indiana's averaging, I think Iowa's doing pretty well. They're averaging 200 yards a game on the ground. Indiana's averaging 300, and it's not like they've got like one back. They had like 4, but now they're down to 3, and they're all really good. In fact, their freshman running back might be their best guy. And Iowa has to do a better job, I think. The numbers don't suggest that Iowa has been leaky against the run. I think they've been a little bit leaky against the run. They just haven't been as bolstered up there as I think they need to be. So that's going to be a key. And I think everything hinges on Iowa being able to run the football, because if they can't run the football and they're getting 3 and outs, and Indiana gets the ball back, and they're going to zip right down the field in 3 minutes and score on you. So it's just, the best defense against Indiana is keeping that offense standing next to Curt Cignetti on the sideline. So those 8-minute drives where you just drag them through the mud and just keep getting first down after first down are going to be critical. Yeah, you can hit some big plays, but I think just keeping them over on the sidelines is going to be huge. And if Iowa can do that, make a special teams play, they got to find a way to create a couple turnovers, and there's your path. I think that there is a path there, but it is really tough because this Indiana team, I think they might be better than they are last year. I know their quarterback is better than, and Curtis Work was a nice quarterback. Mendoza's a pro. He's a 2nd, 3rd round pick. I mean, he's really good.
Kobe Martin's the freshman, I'm guessing you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, he's averaged about 9 yards a carry, and it's not like he's broke a couple of long ones. He's just consistently, he churns out yards. That's fascinating to see. You mentioned Mendoza, 14 touchdown passes, yet to give up an interception, been sacked 3 times, so he's tough to get to. I couldn't agree with you more, Tom. This defensive front for Iowa has to get home in order to put some pressure on him because, well, I mean, Illinois hasn't, and Old Dominion didn't, and Kennesaw State didn't. As you mentioned, it's not exactly murderer's row. I thought Old Dominion was a women's basketball school. That's how they used to be, right? So it's not, but what they did to Illinois and I guess that's why the point spread reacted, right? Because everybody sees the latest, and That's why it's continuing, or at least had continued to shoot up. Cirque opened it at 4. It got to 8.5 at one point. That must be it, right?
Yeah, I would think it got to 8.5. It's funny because last Friday when we were driving over to the stadium, I pulled up one of the books that was legal in New Jersey, and I looked at, and they had a go ahead or a look ahead line, and it was 3.
Really?
It was 3. Yeah, for Iowa, Indiana, 3. Yeah. Indiana -3, and then it kind of, like you said, Cirque opened at 4. I think most places had it at 6.5 Sunday morning, and it zipped it. It was interesting because it hit 8.5 more than once, and the first time it did, there was some buyback and got it back to 7.5. But I don't think it's buying back anymore. And I wonder if tomorrow it steams up to maybe 10.
Well, here's the latest. DraftKings is 8.5. There's now a couple of 7.5s. Both FanDuel and South Point are at 7.5 right now. So it's coming. It's kind of fluctuating.
Yeah, a lot. And I think you're right. A lot of that public steam is going to be on the Hoosiers tomorrow.
I agree.
Will be enough though, because there's going to be a whole lot of pros that are just going to simple number play and going to be on the Hawkeyes for this one. Tom, we saw late in the game against Rutgers, Jalen Watson come in, who in Vegas, Kirk brought him up. And when Kirk brings up a young guy, it definitely gets your attention. We heard about him again during August camp. I don't know if it's where he's going to unseat Deshaun Lee right now, but how much Jalen Watson do we expect to see in Kinnick Stadium tomorrow afternoon, knowing what they do, throwing the ball around, those RPOs, putting a young guy out there in that spot?
Yeah, I think that we're going to see a good amount of him, honestly. Teams seem to be going after Deshaun Lee quite a bit. TJ Hall has been really good this year so far, and credit to that kid because he's worked at it and he's playing really well. But teams are going after Lee. That they did it. The Rutgers did it last weekend and got to him a little bit, and they brought Watson in those last 2 series, and it got pretty quiet. So I think Kirk said on Tuesday you're going to see all 3 of them. So I suspect we're going to see Watson probably fairly early, and then how he does will dictate how long he's out there. But if he does well, he's going to stay out there probably the rest of the game.
We came to expect after watching Drew Stevens' junior year just almost perfection this year, right? And it's not that he's been brutal by any means. And here comes that key word. But there's it maybe hasn't been as seamless as we thought it was going to be. What do you see from Stevens?
Yeah, and I wonder sometimes some of those snaps have been kind of low. Some of the snaps just haven't been great. And I wonder if that's missing Luke Elkin a little bit and at that position, because Luke was really good. He was always on time and right where it needed to be. But Drew also mentioned to me recently when we asked him about some of the misses and such, that sometimes he will drive it a little bit too much instead of just kicking it, and because he might have like the kickoff mentality kind of thing. So I think he's kind of trying to adjust to that a little bit, just kind of kick the football instead of trying to drive it deep. And when he drives it deep, he tends to leave it out to the right a little bit, which you've seen a couple times this year.
Speaking of special teams, Reese Dakin, slow start. The average looks okay, but there's been a bunch of them that have been short, taken a good role, and I guess credit for him for that. But a little bit of a disappointment here in a second campaign.
Yeah, it's just not been, and we saw him in camp and the spring practice and everything, and he was bombing them. So it's just, that's the thing that's really weird, is that he's kind of taken a step back when you didn't expect it. He was, he's put on some weight, gotten stronger. He felt like his lower body was stronger, and he just hasn't been hitting them as pure as he needs to. I'll tell you what, they're going to need him on Saturday because you're going to want to pin that Indiana team back as far as you can, especially when they would be backed up to that north end zone where it gets pretty loud down there and those fans get a little rowdy. They're pretty proud of that fact. So I think that's going to be a real key for Iowa. If he can get some deep punts, pin them inside the 10, let that north end zone work their magic, and see if they can maybe get a turnover or 2.
Speaking of working the magic, as I go back to last Friday again, but it was really the tale of 2 halves. In particular, the secondary, I thought. I mean, you mentioned Calic Manis. He was really good. And in the second half, the windows got a whole lot tighter, and he's willing to throw it in there. A lot of times he did. But the secondary, Tom, I thought that they made significant adjustments. They had to have, because it was a different secondary for the final 30 minutes as opposed to the first half.
The two things happened. They tightened up their coverage, I think, a little bit. They were giving them some cushions in the first half. And Phil decided to bring an extra guy a lot of those times and create some pressure to make them get rid of the ball quicker. Some corner blitzes, and Calic Manis was really good against those. They brought a couple of corner blitzes, and he just, wherever that corner blitz was coming from, he just threw it to that area right out of the snap and made a play. So those didn't work, but some of the other ones did. Some of the other blitz packages with Shire and guys like that. I thought that really worked well. One of the interesting things they did too in the second half was they would bring Jaden Harrell out of the game and put in Jackson Rexroth. You saw Rexroth get the interception, but maybe that Rexroth is a little bit better in coverage, former safety when he came into the University of Iowa as a walk-on. So maybe they feel a little bit better about his coverage in those situations. So that's something to watch this weekend too, because I think you'll probably see more Rexroth out there on those certain passing situations.
Tom, before we let you go, do want to ask you on basketball as practice has begun. Question there, and then we'll get to women's basketball with a potential couple of monster recruits in town. But let's start on the men's side of things. Practice opening up. I was talking to our Locked On Indiana guy. I mentioned I think the expectations are relatively high here. You're number one. When you have a potential All-American point guard, I think you have to have your sights set pretty high with what they have in Sturts. Where are you right now with this basketball team as they get started?
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what they look like. And unfortunately, we're not going to get to see them until that November 4th game, because they're going to do 2 private exhibition or secret scrimmages or whatever. So they're only going to do those 2. And that's it. There's going to be no like, hey, we're going to go play Co or, somebody Graceland or whoever. Not doing any of those. So we won't see them till November 4th when they play Bobby Moe, good old Robert Morris. So I'm really interested to see this team and to see what they look like, because it's got that combination of guys that know this system, and then you've got a lot of new faces. It's an entirely new team. And Cooper Koch, we barely saw. It's really
it's true.
An entirely new team. It's kind of Iowa has kind of been the face of consistency, where guys really don't leave that often. It's not like mass exoduses of players. And we have kind of avoided it in terms of roster changeover. And this is a massive makeover for this program.
It's too bad, because Iowa State, they're going to Creighton. They're going to sell tickets to that. And then Northwestern's coming to Hilton, and they're selling tickets for that.
Here, I'll tell you guys this. They wanted to do one, and they were going to try and do Texas Tech. Yeah. But it was going to be the football weekend. I think it was probably going to be the Penn State weekend, and didn't have hotel rooms. There's no hotel rooms. Yeah. So they couldn't do it.
Yeah, because McCullum took his Drake team out to Lubbock last year and played a really good game apparently against Texas.
Yeah, so Tech. They were gonna see if Texas Tech could come in, because he and Grant McCaslin are really good friends, and they were willing to come up, but they were going to do it like earlier in the day or something, and before that game, and it just wouldn't work out.
Fill us in on the details. A lot of murmurs about a potential women's basketball recruit. And a big one also on campus this week with Bjorn coming to town from down in Kansas City. Yeah. She's a top 5 player nationally.
Top 5
player nationally. And the girl that visited a couple of weeks ago, how do you pronounce her last name? She might be the one that's trending towards a commitment. So it looks like Jan Jensen's got things cooking.
McKenna Valechko is from San Jose, California, forward, kind of small forward. She's a 5-star player. I think she's going to announce her decision early next week. So, and we have a prediction, and I put one in like September 2nd that she was coming to Iowa. So hopefully that turns out that way. But it wasn't like full confidence, but like, hey, I'm hearing some good things that I think Iowa's trending in the right direction here, and we'll eventually get her, and now we'll find out. But yeah, and then Addison Bjorn from the Kansas City area, she's going to be in this weekend. And the interesting story, and credit to Chad Leistico from the Des Moines Register for getting this from McKenna and her family, that when she was doing a story on them, that it was Addison Bjorn's dad that kind of turned them on to Iowa and said, they've just got this great culture here, and they, I think you guys would fit really well at Iowa. You should really kind of dig in on them a little bit. So it's interesting that they're close, and they've talked about Iowa like that. So, and then you've got, Jenica Lewis, the girl from Johnston, who's going to be visiting in October. So another big time recruit.
Good stuff, Tom Kakert. HawkeyeReport.com, HawkeyeReport.com for Tom, a part of the On3 Media Network. Tom, thank you. We'll talk with you next Friday. Appreciate it, Tom.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Take care.
Good to
Bye-bye.
talk to you. Tom Kakert, as we check in on Iowa.
It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For the Hawkeyes this week, it's Caden Weechin who delivered in a big way. Not just the opening kick return for a touchdown against Rutgers, but also what he did helping out in the passing game. He did a little bit of everything and just what you want out of your returner. No hesitation, no delay. If you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. Caden Weechin is on a streak. And just like Weechin delivered for the Hawkeyes, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Today's episode is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most about how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take them anywhere and get that boost when you need it. How many times you been sitting there at the tailgate? Maybe you're heading to Kinnick Stadium on Saturday, and you know what? I need a little bit of a boost. Absolutely, positively, that is the place to go. My favorite, I love the grape. Perfect flavor, perfect way to go on that football Saturday. I love how fast it kicks in, and it's sugar-free. Don't have to worry about that crash later on. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love, or be bold and try something new in store and online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. 5hourenergy.com. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. You everyday listeners out there, you know I like to dabble in the gambling world, or more than dabble. I gamble all the time. Love sports betting. One of my favorite things to do. It is my pastime, if you will. And looking at the slate this week, let's start in the Big Ten with some of the big games. And when you go through the matchups this week in the Big Ten, something jumps off. These home underdogs this weekend, starting in the early window with Illinois against USC. USC, after the late night, they're already complaining about that. Illinois looking so poorly. What your eyes said last week, this is USC all day. My gambling mind, I love Illinois and the points. Also like the points, laying them, though, this time with Minnesota against Rutgers. We'll see about Taylor and his availability, a big part of that one. Cal McManus going back to where he began his career. I just think Minnesota's a better team, though. Those wide receivers, as we learned, are pretty difficult. Couple more in the Big Ten. Of course, Ohio State going to Washington. I am going to be on the Huskies here, getting the 9.5 points as they currently are on FanDuel. Give me the points in that one, and Washington. And the big one, the whiteout in State College, Penn State, Oregon. Penn State's been so good in this spot. And though we have memories of the Hawkeyes upending Penn State in a whiteout back in 2009, no, I do not believe that's going to happen again. This is a very young Oregon team. Because of that, I think you're going to see a little bit of deer headlights. This is going to be certainly the biggest game for Dante Moore in his early career after beginning at UCLA, being a backup last year at Oregon. This is going to be a difficult spot. I like Penn State in the whiteout. I'll lay the 3.5 in that one. And then we wrap it up in Iowa City, 2:30 kickoff on Peacock, Iowa, Indiana. Hoosiers looking so good. This is my gambling mind speaking. And my gambling mind says anybody else in this spot, I would be all over Iowa in a big time way. I'll do it here It's a system play, if you will, for me. You just have to do it. After a team that has that good of a performance, this was a local headline that had Iowa getting 3. Now they're getting north of a touchdown. I'll grab it. Give me Iowa and the 7.5. Fingers crossing. Let's sprinkle a little bit on that money line. See if we can come out a big-time winner on the FanDuel app. That'll do it for today. Thanks for being with us, as always, and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. I will be with you after the conclusion of Iowa, Indiana with a Rapid Reaction podcast. We'll get you set for that one, and we will continue breaking things down and hope for a good one in Iowa City. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit subscribe, 5-star reviews on the podcast side. All of that helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Until tomorrow, and hopefully a Hawkeye win, we'll talk to you then. Go Hawks.